You're busy, you've got a decent practice, but nobody wants to be decent. You want to be great, and you want to have a great practice. So how did the most productive, profitable dentist in the nation balance real life, work, and profits, and somehow make it all seem fun? Well, it comes down to simple, everyday practices. So grab a lunch, join us as we chat with top clinicians and influencers to discover their formula for uncommon success. Are you ready? Then it's time to explore everyday practices with Vicki McManus-Peterson and Dr. Chad Johnson.
Oh my God, Chad. I'm so excited today. We've got Dr. Paul Etchison with us.
Dr. Paul Etchison, welcome.
Hey, glad to be here. Thanks for having me.
Yeah. So for the listeners, can you tell us where you're from and where you're practicing now?
So I'm from like Chicago area. I'm about 40 miles south of Chicago. It's where I grew up. Right now I live in a town called Frankfort, but I grew up in a town called Lockport, and I've kind of always been around this area, and that's where my practice is as well. So it's about 40 miles from Chicago. With traffic, it takes about an hour and a half to get there.
Yeah.
No traffic, about 40 minutes.
So did you do dental school at Illinois?
I did, yeah.
Okay.
And I still lived in Lockport, so I did like about an hour and a half to 2 hours of commuting every day. It was
wow. In dental school of all things.
Yeah, it was not a smart idea.
Right.
I should have lived in the city, and if I could go back and do it again, I would have done it differently.
You saved $1 and lost 3 hours a day. Great.
Yeah, right.
Yeah. No, but what do you do? Yeah. You have business experience. Do you have your MBA?
No, I don't have an MBA. I have a major in advertising, though.
That's what it was. Right. Tell us about your experience with that in undergrad.
Yeah. I mean, it was kind of cool. It was a good experience, like looking at a lot of marketing stuff and a lot of, larger, more famous advertising campaigns, and just like how that worked. All the business history was good to know. It wasn't something I was passionate about. It wasn't something that really just got me excited. Yeah. And I had a internship at Leo Burnett advertising agency in Chicago, and then that fell through, and that kind of took the wind out of my sails, which
That's right.
started like looking like, okay, do I really even want to do this? And that's where I was just Googling different professions and found dentistry and said, hey, this looks okay. Let's try this out.
And just for the listeners, I didn't, stalk him behind, but I've got a bunch of questions going on in my mind because he recently wrote Dental Practice Hero: From Ordinary Practice to Extraordinary Experience. So if you look that up on Amazon, it's been a great read, and it was detailed enough that there are tangible things that you can do for your practice, but then it also had some great concepts, and it also showed your personal I don't want to get too cheesy, but like it showed your personal heart that you're a genuinely good guy, and that you are a good father, and that you're transparent about where you went right and where you've gone wrong. So I really liked that about the book.
Yeah,
you know what I also love about Paul is that he is a PDA grad.
Yes.
And he is part of the same club you are in our Grand
Slammers.
And to be a Grand Slammer, A, you have to be productive. You're producing $1,000 an hour or more. Mm-hmm. B, you are a great leader. And the way we measure that is by team turnover. So you have low team turnover in your office. And then C, you got to just be an all-around great guy or gal. Mm-hmm. Like you contribute to your community, and you're just living a great life, right?
Thanks,
so Paul,
Vicki.
That's why I'm excited. I'm excited for your book. Anybody can write a book. I write books. They're self-published.
Right.
But when you get a book from somebody who's in the trenches, who's doing it every day and doing it at such an extraordinarily high level with the amount of balance you have in your life, I can't wait for you to share, what are your everyday practices? We'll just start there. What's one thing that if I skip doing this, it kind of throws my day off a little bit?
Planning is huge for me. I got I have a to-do list that never gets down to zero, but I really try to get it there. Yeah. And before I go to bed each night, I look at it and I reorder things, and I always make sure that I always swallow a frog is the first thing I do. Like I try to get something off my to-do list that I really just don't want to do, because those are the things that tend to stay on there a long time. But yeah, it's planning, it's whiteboarding, it's writing out goals, and reverse engineering backwards. Like those are really important things for me, and that's what helps me kind of move the needle a little bit every day.
How much do you look at your schedule in the morning before you get started, whether we call it a morning huddle or not? But, what does that look like specifically for your dental schedule?
We have a morning huddle on 2 of the 3 days that I practice. So I see patients 3 days a week.
Yep.
We should have a morning huddle all 3 days, but the one day that we don't have it is the day that I start at 1 o'clock, and it's my Monday. And I usually get in there and I get kind of like bombarded with 3 or 4 things. And we always miss that morning huddle. But yeah, I kind of just show up and just, I go. I'm not saying that we don't plan or we don't do a morning huddle. We definitely do, and it's useful. But I'm not somebody who's looking very far ahead in my schedule, because I just know that I got my team to support me and they got it under control.
Yeah.
I know you've got some questions. Can I jump
do.
in here?
Absolutely. That's why I'm trying to back off for you.
Well, one of the things, Paul, that we talk about, is really important at PDA is linking, that one act play, that new patient visit, and linking. And, Bruce always talks about there are 2 types of people. There's engineers and the non-engineers. And unfortunately, most dentists are engineers and most people are not. So sometimes for doctors, just knowing how to get started to talk to people like a normal conversation is the hardest. Like, I can do an MB3, apicoectomy, all kinds of heroic things on a tooth, but just saying hello can be hard. And in your book, you actually describe by age group, like, what are some of the interests? And how did you come up with that? What are some tips you can give to everybody?
So, I mean, it's just small talk, and you can buy books on small talk, and it helps to kind of, you need to take it somewhere eventually. That's the link that we're creating.
Right.
I remember when I heard that from Bruce when I took PDA, that was like huge for me. That was like massive case acceptance from going in the room and getting to know the patient as a person before you start diving into the dental stuff. I kind of just, it's really easy. You could talk about sports with guys. I mean, there's a lot of things that you can relate to with people. I find that women 45 to 60 have grandkids, and they like to talk about them a lot. But a lot of times my hygienist will also, she'll set me up, I'll say, this is what the person needs. I talked to them about this. I talked about this. And I'll say, okay, what can I talk to? What do I need to know about them? And they'll say, oh, they're taking a vacation next week. Are they going to Vegas or something like that? So, and then I'll just go in there and say, hey, Amanda told me that you're going to Vegas next week. Where are you guys staying? And the conversation leads places. Sometimes you get people that just don't want to talk, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Just leave them alone.
Can be rough. Yeah.
Yeah. They're just grumpy or something. I don't know. But yeah, I mean, it's important. You got to get to know your patient on a personal level. And it's so much important. You have to write that stuff down so that your patients think you have the best memory in the world when they come back 6 months later, because you won't remember it. And that's so important in building relationships.
That's so much different. That's a different starting point on case presentation, which I've come to not even like that word, because it's more like relationship building, right?
Yeah.
Versus the old days. I loved it when, cosmetics was booming and you just throw their pictures in a PowerPoint and just kill them with information. And people would say yes, because you sounded so smart. But consumers can Google all of that now. They can do dreamsmiles.com and upload their picture and see what it's going to look like. And then they'll bring it to you and say, hey, doc, can you do this? It's such a different educated consumer. And what they're really craving, from what I'm hearing you say, is it's that connection. It's that personal touch. It's that human touch.
Well, that's right. They want to trust you, and they want to, once they like you, then they can trust you. And getting them to say yes is essentially leading them. It's leadership, and leadership is relationships and communication as well. So it's all kind of intertwined,
Yeah. Yeah.
I like in the book how you talked about CE was a big component. What kind of dentistry do you do in your office, and what kind of CE do you like currently?
So the CE that I like currently, it has to do with more like case presentation and management things.
Soft skills.
I haven't went to a lot of clinical CEs anytime probably in the past year and a half, which is really strange for me. But what's kind of been getting me excited lately has been running my business and kind of scaling it up, rather than the patient portion. And no disrespect to my patients. I love seeing my patients.
Right.
But I think I'm here. I'm 10 years out of school, and I'm kind of hitting this clinical burnout almost, where it's not exciting me as much as I have been excited about running the business. We just expanded from 5 to 11 ops. So we brought on a second associate. We're bringing on an oral surgeon. So we're putting together marketing plans and doing a lot of stuff, a lot of cool stuff. And I've been enjoying that. But to answer your question, I took tons of clinical CE. I do tons of ortho right now. I do a lot of implants. I do molar endo. I've used block scheduling like PDA teaches, and I don't do a lot of fillings anymore, because they go to my associates, which is nice. And it's not that I'm dumping it on my associates. They just have openings in their schedule. And I said, hey, if you have openings, would you rather see a filling or nothing? If you want to see a filling, you can take all mine.
Right.
And so we've been kind of like deflecting fillings away from me. And it's been really good. I've been comfortable. And even if I have an opening in my schedule where I could take a filling, I'd rather work on my business.
Darn right. Now, Jenny said that you guys were doing marketing together and that you started doing that. Can you tell us how that experience has gone? Because I noticed in the book that you said that recently you were trying to ramp up your new patient load. For a while, you were saturated. And now at this point, you're trying to tailor which kind of patients that you're selecting.
Right. Yeah. So, I mean, when we reach the saturation point, it's crazy because it's just, there's nowhere to put anybody. Right now we have tons of openings in our schedule.
More chairs.
We've added chairs, we've added hygienists, and we've added provider, a new dentist too. So we've got a lot of openings. So we're trying to do pay-per-click. It just rolled out like last week.
Wow.
So it's like, we're seeing an increase in the call volume, but with pay-per-click, as you know, it takes like about a month to get to kind of really flow forward, where you're figuring out what search terms to use and stuff like that. And then we want to do a bunch of Facebook stuff. Like we want to post things on our Facebook. And what's funny about that is we've been talking about, we want to post things on our Facebook. And we've been saying this for almost 2.5, 3 months. And we haven't posted something, So I'm in my home office and I'm looking up my whiteboard right now and I'm looking at all the things, and there's post something on Facebook about the expansion. And we're literally like, we just opened it up on Monday and I still have yet to post anything about our expansion. So
you get hit from every angle.
Yeah, I've been busy.
It's a good time to delegate.
Oh gosh, I know it.
So, you know what, Paul, you bring up a really, really great point, because practice management back in the day, which I'm talking like, 1999, not that long ago, you're a solo doctor, you grow your practice, you hit saturation, you start taking time off, maybe you bring an associate, maybe you don't, you're fat, happy, all of that. And that was pretty much game over. Mm-hmm. And now the trend does seem to be bring in second doc, bring in third doc, start a second location. And the hardest part, I think, for all of that is the mentorship of the new doctor coming in. So what do you do every day for your young doctors? How do you interact? How do you get them up to speed? How do you do quality assurance? What does that look like?
So I guess I just talk about my newer associate because I think it's more fresh in my mind. Every Thursday we'll sit down and we'll go through a few of her new patients. We'll just go through the chart, look at the x-rays. And we do this at our monthly meeting with our hygienists as well and all the providers. Like I'll put together like 5 or 6 cases, these pictures. Hey, and then we'll look at them. We'll say, what would you say here? What would we recommend? And then we'll look at a crack in a tooth and a molar. Okay, how big is the filling? If it's a big filling, we're going to want to crown it. If it's a small filling with the crack, we're going to put the tooth sleuth on it and see if it's painful when they bite on it. So we've all got the same kind of diagnostic criteria, and that helps us calibrate. The other thing that's useful is I listen to her exams. I encourage her to listen to mine as well. That doesn't always work because we're not always on the same schedule, but we try to do that. I'd love to come up with a way to videotape like our actual case presentation and our exams. And I just haven't figured out a way to do it. And I know there's like HIPAA problems, but I just kind of think, well, I'd like to see myself, I'd like to see my posture, the way that my body language is. So I think that's important. That's something I want to do in the future. And then the other thing is I just kind of really open relationship where they're saying like, hey, what's working? What do you need more training on? What do you want to know more about? And just constantly checking in. And that not just for the associate, that's for your entire staff, just checking in and seeing what's going on. and having the attitude that, hey, you can tell me anything, like anything you're struggling with, it's totally okay to like screw something up. And I think the last thing I would do is when she's doing some class 2 fillings, I'll just pop in and like get the assistant's attention, and I'll say, take a bite wing. Take the bite wing, and I'll put up my air quotes, and I'll say, take a bite wing for insurance. Just because I want to see, and then me and Carrie, is my new associate, are going to look at that. We're going to look at that bite wing, because I want to find those now instead of a year from now when we take bite wings again.
476.
Right.
Because I tell you, I feel like I just perfected class 2 composites like 7 years out of schools.
Right.
It took me forever.
If you're honest with yourself, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, it's one of the hardest things. And then you'll see a patient that comes, like, I had this one guy, he had a dentist in Minnesota, and he got class 2 on every tooth, and they were just gorgeous. And I was just like, oh my gosh, like, I got to up my game. Those
Minnesotans, they use the 3M products,
yeah.
the discs and
You got all the tricks.
Yeah. Hey, when you were talking in your book about peer reviews, and you were doing those anonymously, did you send out a survey monkey for those? Is that how that worked for?
We use quick surveys.
Quick surveys.
Which used to be free, and now it's not. But we just did this 2 weeks ago now. We use quick surveys, and just pretty much, for the listeners.
Yes.
We ask a few more questions for the leadership, for me and the associates, like, do I feel appreciated? Do I feel comfortable talking to this person about issues? Things like that. And then they can rate it on from strongly disagree to strongly agree. And then, but for every team member, we say, how well does this person uphold the values of the practice, 1 to 10? How valuable of a team member is this person, 1 to 10? And then there's a type-in box they can write praise, and there's a type-in box that they can write constructive criticism.
Yeah.
With the emphasis on constructive, because the first time we did it, it wasn't very constructive. It went very bad. And I was just reading mine, and they're scary because they're real, and people do not hold back on it. And I apparently need to work on paying more attention and focus. Like, my staff always makes the joke, if he's not looking at you, he's not listening.
Well, that's the truth for more people than they'd like to admit.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul.
Yeah.
I have a phrase that might help, because I solicit feedback a lot too, and it's like, I don't know if I want to read that, right? So I learned this really cool. I learned this at a yoga camp, actually, a feedback loop. It's called a wish and a star, and you've got to have both. You can't just say, "Oh, you're great." That's the star, and then the wish was. So that's the way constructive feedback. You just change that to a wish and a star.
Okay, I like that.
Yeah. Try that next time for your language and see. It made it easier for me to hear feedback. So it's like, hey, you're really great at this, and I wish.
It's softer.
I wish that you were a little more approachable. I wish that I could get time with you. I wish that you would look at me when we talked, whatever that is. So I love the framing of the I wish part.
Yeah.
It's hard not to get like immediately like defensive when you read these. What do you mean I'm not approachable? I totally am.
I'm perfect.
Yeah.
Who are you?
It helped me a lot.
If everybody was like me.
Yeah.
Of course, I'm not approachable. You're a pinhead.
Yeah. I like that, Vicki. I'm going to use that.
Yeah. Try. It helped me to hear it better. And, that's something you and I have in common, is that we're always tweaking words, looking for that emotional intelligence, that EQ kind of sweet spot there, because you want to de-stress it as much as you can. You want to encourage, all of that as much as you can.
Yeah. I had somebody was telling me about my implant case presentation. She's like, you need to stop calling that a screw that you're putting in somebody's head. And I'm like, well, what do you call it? It is a screw. She's like, what about a man-made titanium root? And I'm like, all right.
Fancy, but screw that. You saw that coming, didn't you?
Kind of.
Yeah. Hey, Paul, so you're a crazy busy guy. I just know, and also, just that prototypical Chicago suburb, you're killing it and whatnot. How are you doing just lately? Not your whole life, but how are you doing lately with balancing, now that you're done with your book, and balancing home life? And do you get to see your wife and girls? How's that going?
Recently I have been very much shifted towards work, and just because we had this expansion and there's a lot of things are happening recently. But I try to, it's hard to shut it off when you come home. You know, it's hard to stop thinking about, but I try to, it's like if you try to do 3 things at once, or I think the Confucius thing was like the man who chases 2 rabbits catches neither.
Yeah.
If you try to do 2 things at once, you don't do anything very well. So what I really, really, really try hard, and I struggle with it sometimes, I'm not perfect.
Of course.
When I get home, I put the phone upstairs and I try to just stay off it, focus on my girls. Me and my wife do a date night every other week. We said it's non-negotiable. We did some planning as well. Like we kind of like our marriage, like a business, so much like what's going well, what's not going well, what can we work on, what are we really doing well with, what are we not doing well with. And that was one of the things that we came up with in our last meeting about 3 months ago, is that we're non-negotiable. And she said, let's do a date night every week. And I said, well, we don't do it at all right now. So let's start.
Right.
Baby steps, honey.
Smart goal.
Yeah, let's do once every other week. But then I do that with my girls. I'll do one date with each of them.
Before you were married.
Right.
So I'll do like one date with each of my girls once every other week. So we have that. I have a little checklist that goes with that so that I can stay accountable. But right now I'm just really focused on work because we got the expansion. And I think that's okay. I think if you live in the middle, like you literally, nothing good ever happens. You've got to go way out of balance one way and then go way out of balance the other way. So right now I'm out of balance towards work. Over the summertime, I'm usually out of balance towards home because, you know, it's fun things to do.
Maybe it's just there's seasons, right?
Yes.
It's not a balance issue at all. You don't plant in the winter.
Right.
Right. So right now you're planting the seeds in your business and then you'll harvest. It's the season.
That's really wise. I like
I don't
that.
know why. I'm coming into my sage. So that's what the year's all about.
I love it.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I literally, like in September, I took off 2 weeks, and that was awesome. And I didn't do a whole lot of work.
Paul, are you an iPhone guy or an Android guy?
Oh, I'm Android.
Nice.
Yeah.
All right. I've got a new buddy here. Heck yeah.
All right, but are you ham or eggs?
What, ham or eggs? Both.
No, you got to pick one or the other. It's just a thing.
Or eggs.
I tend to think everything that comes from the pig is just delicious. So you can't screw up
Yes.
anything. Yeah.
Well, buddy, it's been good talking with you. Do you want to tell us a little bit more information about how listeners could kind of tap into your podcast and then also with your book?
Yeah, sure. It's Dental Practice Heroes Podcast. You can subscribe on iTunes or wherever you use. I use Podcast Addict because we're Android, you know. So, but anywhere you get podcasts, and just subscribe to that. I have my book. It's available on Amazon. It's paperback. It's Kindle. It's also audiobook. So I was really surprised is that I'd say 1 out of every 3 book sales is the audiobook. Or you know what? Let me take that back. 2 out of 3. 2 out of 3 is the audiobook. So
now, after you sell your first $1 million, who are you going to have read? Like, what famous person are you going to have read your audiobook on the second edition? Who?
Oh man, I don't. Maybe Bruce. I don't know if his eyes are going to work still though.
No, I was thinking like we should bring
Bruce.
Alfred Hitchcock back.
Yes.
Or
Samuel L. Jackson.
Samuel L. Jackson. Yeah, Denzel.
Denzel.
By the time it sells $1 million, I might not even be here anymore.
Right.
But yeah, so if anyone wants to get in contact with me, hit me up on Facebook, the Facebook Messenger. That's cool. I'm friends with tons of people. People reach out to me all the time. Happy to have a phone call with people. Sometimes that gets a little bit busy and it's hard to get back to people, but I always have a list. And I mean, I just talked to someone last week and he was like, oh man, it's really cool that you eventually called me. I know it was 2 months. I said, hey, I didn't forget about you. I just, lots going on. So, happy to, just sit down and talk with anyone, have a phone call and see what's up.
That's awesome.
Paul, what's the next CE class we might find you at?
We got Chris Bowman coming out to Chicago next weekend for me, my office and another office.
That's nice.
I'm looking forward to that. I met him at Voices of Dentistry and really cool guy. And then I had him on my podcast. I just really liked what he had to say about his case presentations. Treatment presentation was really good. Other than that, I have Voices of Dentistry that I'm speaking at.
Hey, we'll see you there.
Yeah. And then I have, then I'm going to Dental Success Summit with Mark Costas. So that's all I have down the pipe. Not a single clinical CE anymore.
That's okay, man.
So I guess I've reached that point where I can't improve on my dentistry anymore. It's just that good.
You know what? When you say it like that, it almost sounds like a joke. But when you are on the bleeding edge, there is a point where sometimes you just kind of have to wait for the next sharp edge to happen because it's just not. You know, I've even gone, well, I won't say to which one, but there was one I went to and people were like, are you going to go next year? And I was like, you know, I might just take a year or two off of this one because I just felt like this year and the year before were kind of the same. So I imagine next year's might just be the same. So I'll give it a little while to like at least get something. Now, other people, it hits them in the sweet spot and they go, wow, this was amazing. It opened my eyes. But for myself in this particular seminar, I was just like, you know, I'm already doing everything that everyone else is kind of wowing. And not to pat yourself on the back, but it's just like, well, that's a good feeling to know that you're on the cutting edge.
Yeah. I mean, you kind of hear things and it's hard to hear new things sometimes. And I mean, I'll tell you
that you'll go to a business class or what seems like a non-clinical class, and you'll pick up more on a cocktail napkin, you know, at the bar outside the CE class in the hallways. Clinically,
when other people are rolling their eyes, like, oh, not this again.
Because you're looking for that little needle in the haystack. You're not looking for the straw anymore, right?
I was just going to say that, Vicki, that my last CE that I went to, and I won't say which one it was. I mean, every time I go to a CD, we go out partying and just drinking and going to the bar and talking about, you know, our practices and stuff like that. But I used to be where I would, you know, do that till 2 a.m. and then wake up at 5 or 6 and go to the class. Yeah. Now I'm just like, no, I'm going to sleep till 11. I'm going to miss the first morning. Sleep's more important to me now, you know. I'm
not going to have Ryan Oakley back. We just interviewed him, Paul. I know you know Ryan.
Yeah.
He goes, dude, I could give such a great class on CE hangovers.
Yes, he did.
And I thought, you know what, this is going to be great because, you know, like you take so much information in that you're kind of hungover. Yeah. How do you digest it and get it to your team? And he's like, no, I'm talking Advil, copious amounts, and you got to shave, man. That's the giveaway. You know, Godfather glasses. I'm like, oh my God, we got to have you back for the CE hangover.
Yeah, I'm pretty good at those too.
Paul, I'm looking forward to meeting you in person, but until then, it's been really good having the listeners catching up with you after having read your book. I'm starstruck from having you on, and I appreciate your wisdom, man.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It was fun.
Bring your lunch or take us to the gym again next week to improve your everyday practices. Also, subscribe on iTunes, follow us on social media, and sign up for our email list. Now get out there and win with everyday practices.